But yeah, it's great. It's great seeing everyone. I know that I hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and at least none of you seem to be hurt on the outside. I know that a couple of I can't do anything about necessarily the internal injuries if you suffer them from your family. But can I just say how awesome it is to see all of you back? It really just warms my heart. So, and I want, let it not be said that Pastor Scott does not offer the olive branch for the Dallas Cowboys who won on Thanksgiving, which is proof that God is still working in our nation. Amen. I'm just kidding. No, so they are good. I am so happy. As I said, my brother-in-law is in Fort Worth, and so he had to tell me that his boys were not doing so bad, and so I congratulated him as well. Good on them as well. So, but now that Thanksgiving is officially behind us, we now I hope that you don't wait until January for the New Year, New Me fitness plans to start kicking in. I suggest if you preempt those, and then you can also help for Christmas dinner as well. So, but I just want to welcome you all because at Navigation Church, our mission is very simple: that we exist to live the truth in love, to lead others to Christ, and grow deeper in our relationship with Him. That is why we exist. And so today begins the Advent season. So a lot of people might have heard that. Advent, it's coming back, it's big. But Advent is actually a massively historic Christian tradition, and it simply means arrival. That's what it means. The Advent is Latin for arrival. And for centuries, believers around the world use the 4 weeks before Christmas to prepare our hearts for the celebration, not just of Jesus' birth, which is what we celebrate, which is His coming to save the world, but also His return a second time as well. And so each week we have five candles. The 4 weeks will be for each week, and then the middle one is the Christ candle, which will be on our Christmas Eve service. That I highly encourage everyone to come. If you have a friend, please bring them as well, because it's just a way that we can love others and love our friends and just have a wonderful time. So Advent is a way that we slow down. So that way, hopefully, especially as the nights are getting a little bit longer and we're slowing down anyway, we want to just take a moment to realize, as always, what the Christmas season is about, and that is the coming of Christ. So this morning, Danny has graciously been offered to light the candle. So we light the first candle of Advent, which is the candle of hope, as our amazing worship director has said quite a few songs about hope. So, thank you so much. And Advent begins in the dark. It does. And it reminds us that the people of God once waited for a very distant promise. And they had been in darkness, and it was a light that they could barely see on the horizon. That was just a promise. And just like them, we wait. But I do not wait with fear. I wait with confidence of a Savior who has come and will come back. And I think that God always keeps His word. I really do. And as the candle is lit, I want us to remember that our light might seem a little bit distant because we don't know the time He's going to come back. But I want to know that while Jesus is coming back, He has already brought salvation for everyone. I'm really excited for that. So I wanted to start off with a simple question. Does anyone already have their Christmas lights up on their house?
No.
Okay. That is the answer, Chris.
No.
Okay.
No.
Because, you might laugh, obviously you might laugh, but I remember going to Lowe's and Home Depot a few weeks ago, and they already had Christmas decorations. That was the day after Halloween. It was Thanksgiving. Nope, we get your fall decorations in September and August, because after Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. So they had already had it. So that's why I say, does anyone have a neighbor that already has their Christmas lights up?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that. What's nice is we have the lights on the outside, the safety lights, so I just go into my app and press Christmas, and boom, my lights are up, and now I never have to worry about them ever again for the rest of my life. Highly encourage that for everyone. But as every year, as I found out after I married Mac, is that Thanksgiving is very, very important for her, and I cannot have any Christmas music. There will be no Christmas music. Okay? Mariah Carey aside, which she should not be played at all, even during Christmas, okay? That it cannot, So she, after about a year into our marriage, I started playing Christmas. She's like, no, it's not Thanksgiving. I'm like, so what? It's like, and I was even on the radio. It's like, no, I'm not even doing it. It's the radio. She's like, no, you will not have Christmas carols. So now that Thanksgiving is over, I get to play it on repeat as long as I want without any dirty looks or evil stares or fear that she is going to do something. So, but as I get older, I try to stay aware of the changes in the world. I've never really wanted to be the guy that's the get off my lawn, kind of guy that shakes his fist at guys. But the more I swear, the more I live, the more I keep asking myself, like, has it always been this way? Like, we had a thing in this country. You might have heard of it. It's kind of big. It was called Black Friday, okay? And it was very specific, very limited, and very direct in its title as to what it was, okay? Which, for the sake of sounding a little crazy, okay, I have been getting emails and ads for Black Friday prices all week, like starting last Monday, okay? And there's always some person who's like, Scott, why does Black Friday why does it only have to be on a Friday? And my response is, it's in the name Black Friday. That's why. It's going to all be one day because of the name, okay? Now, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to give me Black Friday prices in July. Christmas in July? Yeah, like the song. We used to have, for those of us who are older than 5 years old, we used to have this thing called Cyber Monday, which you might realize, okay? And there's still a thing, called Cyber Monday, which was then, but that was like two direct days. You had the Black Friday and the Cyber Monday, and now we have Black Friday week, we have Black Friday month, it's gonna be Black Friday Christmas Eve prices, and so now Cyber Monday can go into the pot with all the MySpace accounts as to I remember, and you're like, yep, it's gonna be MySpace, Cyber Monday, I remember when, yep, there you go, there's your corner right there, okay? So, but I will say this, men, let me give you a word of advice, okay? Not just spiritual advice, but world good advice. If you are betting on Amazon's 2-day shipping to buy your Christmas presents on December 22nd, okay, thinking that they're going to arrive on Christmas Eve for you to wrap under the tree, please reconsider your life choices, okay, please. Because do not be the guy who places his Christmas faith in the United States Postal Service, okay? I'm not knocking them, I'm just saying, don't do it, okay? So, you have been warned because I love you all. I do love you, okay? But here's a real question I have for today, is what do we hope for this Christmas season? What do we hope for? For some, I think it's health, rightly so. I think that especially if you're getting over sickness, or many people are in sickness. I know Jace is not here because he's been very sick. So for some people, it's health, and for others, it might be happiness or an area of growth in your life. If you're trying to grow, it might be multiple areas of growth in your life. And I want to say, it might just be something as simple as 50% off an 80-inch screen TV. That's something I might hope for. But maybe a deeper question is, as a follower of Christ, what do you hope for this Christmas season? Is it just to hopefully say a Merry Christmas? Is it something specific? Is it something nebulous? Because I want to say that if we don't ask ourselves that question, if we don't have a hope in something that can be real, that we can put our hat on, is that we're very prone to lose it. And I don't want us to lose hope that is very real that we have this season. For our passage today, it has a verse that is very, very well known, that's often, but our passage today comes from Isaiah, so the prophet Isaiah, which is where a lot of the messianic prophetical verses come from. It's in the Old Testament, because if you're looking for a hope, that's mostly where all their hope was, right? It was in the Old Testament. And I picked this because it was a dark time for them, that they really needed and hoped in a Messiah that they hoped would come to save them. And I actually think that as we look at it, maybe we could see a time similar to our own, to today. A time of trouble where people have lost hope, where people are trying to find hope in the wrong things, that they're surrounded by darkness, they're surrounded by depression, and they're surrounded by things, and they need hope this season. And this is what the prophet Isaiah told the people of God who needed hope at this time. And it's Isaiah 9, and starts out in verse 2 and goes through verse 7. And it'll be up on the screen. It says this: the people who who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in land, deep darkness, on them has shone light. Light has shone. You have multiplied the nation. You have increased its joy. They rejoice before you as with joy at the harvest, as they are glad when they divide the spoils. For the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of the oppressor, you have broken, as on the day of Midian. For every boot of the trampled warrior in battled tumult, and every garment rolled in blood, will be burned as fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, and to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And of the increase of his government and of peace there will be no end. And on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. So we can obviously, a lot of people like verse 6. You know, we're maybe not familiar with all of the verses, but to us a child is born, to us is given. That's mostly a lot of time the Christmas verse. So if you've ever heard messianic prophecies, that'd be one of them. And it leads me into my first point, and that is this, is that darkness does not mean that God is absent. You know, Isaiah gives this prophecy sometime around 732 or 33 BC, before Christ, okay? And what's interesting about this, because it's never given, is that the tribes of Israel were actively at war at this time, and they were losing. They were not fighting and winning, they were fighting and losing to the Assyrian Empire, which is the country of Syria, which is to the north. They really hated them. And towns are actively being destroyed, people are fleeing, and everyone fears what's coming next. Because if you know how war is, they don't just go a few miles, they try and take everything to the winner. And in 10 years, in 1722, Assyria will completely conquer the northern tribes of Israel. They will be gone. And what was worried was it was already happening. And this, in the darkness, in the problem, Isaiah actually says that to us a child is born, and a light will shine, and his governance will be forever. And so when Isaiah says in verse 2, the people in darkness have seen a great light, this is not poetic exaggeration, this is actually happening, okay? This is a reality, and they had a very uncertain, future. They had no clue. And yet, here's the interesting part. In the verses, Isaiah is talking as if present tense. He's talking to us a light has come. It's already arrived. It's already here, man. It's coming. And he is speaking of hope while the shadows are falling. And so I do hope that none of us here are on the precipice of a total collapse, okay? No matter what the news says, I don't think the United States is on a total national collapse of identity. But that doesn't mean that we as individuals do not sit in our own darkness. And I think that it's easy for us to be like, oh, the nation, that us as individuals can be in pretty bad dark times. And you, by the way, you do not have to be at rock bottom, okay, to feel this darkness. Because here's my point, is that darkness can happen at every level of life. Every level. You know, some of the hardest seasons I have walked through have been invisible to most people. Okay, why? Because I don't need pity. I don't, if you're like me, I don't need pity. People are just going to say that sucks, and they're just going to go on with their day. And so I just kind of find, if I just am invisible, I don't have to burden them. You know, this is big for a lot of people. I don't want to burden everyone else, so I'll just suffer in silence. And and that's what I'm saying, is that some of the hardest parts of my life you would never know, because I don't want to burden other people. You know, I remember during my time in youth ministry, I spent many, many years in youth ministry. And I would have some of the students come up that were not in my group. They were not my group, and they'd just say, hey, Scott, can I talk to you? I have a problem. And of course, I'd be like, well, sure, you can talk to me, but why don't you talk to your leader? And they'd actually come back and they'd say, well, I tried, but they told me that I shouldn't worry about it because it's not that big, and when I get older, there will be bigger problems. Now, not in those exact words, but effectively, as you can imagine, they're like, no, that's not a big problem. Just wait until you serve rent. Just wait until you have all these other issues. Just wait until you have a car payment and a phone payment. And under the best circumstances, what they're trying to do is just be like, your problem is not that big, so you shouldn't worry about it. And can I tell you, they took the opposite, because that answer to me is about as helpful as me telling my wife, honey, you need to calm down, okay? It is absolutely true, but just not very helpful, right? And so I feel that sometimes one of the biggest things is that if it was a crisis to them, I wanted to treat it like a crisis to me. Because if it wasn't that bad, the only way that I could actually help them was to get with them on their level and then help bring them out of the crisis. And what I found that yes, it might not have been that tough, but we all face crises that are not that tough to other people, right? And they're still crises to us. Absolutely. In fact, those are really the only crises that I see, is that the crisis to me, and then I go to people where it's not a big crisis, and then hopefully they can help me out of it, because I'm like, that's not bad to you. Help me out. And I saw this happen, with a lot of relationship breakups. Students, mostly the women, not as much the men. But they would be like, I found it that the solution is not, oh, don't worry, you'll break up with a ton of men by the time you find the good one. That is not necessarily very helpful to women. I don't know if it is to you, but that's not the way I was for men, because I would see that they would struggle in their own way. And what they really needed was hope. What they really needed was someone to go do that. And I think that we often assume that real darkness only really applies if we're at the bottom of our life, like bottom of the barrel. It does not. It can happen at every single level. And here's what's interesting. The Hebrew word that they use in verse 2 for deep darkness is called Sephalmaveth. It's actually the same word that David uses in Psalm 23, verse 4, where it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Because it actually the word literally means death shadow. That's the deep darkness, because shadows can be dark, and when you're in the deep darkness, you are in the shadow of something. And sometimes it just whispers no one. Like, I actually think that sometimes this deep darkness for us is said, no one sees me. That's where I think it comes out into today's things, is they just say, I'm in a place and no one is seeing me. That's the deep darkness. And here's what I think it ties, is that in both situations of Isaiah and in the Psalms, that we see a God that is not absent, and he's not just abandoning his people. In fact, Micah says this, he says, though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. And that's why I said that Advent begins in darkness. And in fact, the whole world, the whole universe started in darkness, right? Until God came in and said, let there be light. And sometimes that's the same way it is in our life, is that we're full of darkness until God enters it, and then it becomes really, really bright. And I think, but here, I want to show you a little clip of what hope looks like. I thought this, okay? It's a clip about a band of men and women that were about to be destroyed by a great evil, okay? And they've been told that reinforcements will come, but it's going to be a few days. And just as they are about to be overrun, their hope comes through. Watch it.
Look to my coming at first light on the fist. After all, look to the east.
We'll fix that.
Land and king stand alone. Not alone. Look it up!
Yes. It's a good scene. Mildred, about to have you over. I've been informed that someone in this room has not seen.
She's watching it next weekend.
You haven't seen it either.
I haven't either.
No,
I
I
did. You
This
all
is
are
why
hostage,
God-
we're not leaving after this.
So, gentlemen, while the women have their tea, we will be watching Two Towers, extended edition. No, it's, absolutely. There is no normal edition. There's only the extended edition. Okay. I was told that there was another edition. Those are all lies and misinformation. There's only one. It is 3.5 hours long. That's the only one. Okay. But you know what? As much as I love the Two Towers, I will say. I have it on very good authority that Gandalf did not come to save the Israelites. Okay,
Oh my God.
I know that's what I said. Gandalf did not come to rescue them. They did not have a wizard who promised to come on 5 days. Believe me, if it was only 5 days and then help would arrive, I think the Israelites would have done pretty well for themselves. But what I will say is they did have a God who was working behind the scenes to actually bring them a Messiah who would one day bring them the rescue that they longed for. That actually did happen. And they had to put their trust in his timing, and many did, and some did not. But I will say this, unlike our movie, and I love the movie, I've seen it a few times, okay? Our hope is not in the imagination of a screenwriter. It is not in the timing of a fictional storyline for dramatic effect, okay? It's not that. Our hope rests in a Savior who has worked, who is working, and who will work even when we do not see it. I want us to know that. And one of the things that I felt kind of interesting is that all throughout the Old Testament, despite all the hardships that the children of God were still asked to be a light for others. Despite all their hardships and all the people who were being really mean to them, and they were, believe me, God still said you had to be a light to others. And he did not choose Israel simply to bless them. I know that sometimes people are like, wow, become a Christian, then you get all the blessings from God. That is not, I would say, how it works. But he did bless them so they could shine his light to other people who did reject him. And that is my second point, is that even in a dark world, God makes his people shine. And even though I will say the full, true light is Jesus, Israel was still called to shine the light that they had as children of God before he arrived. And in many ways, Israel is a stand-in for us today. They really are. Like, if you're like, oh, those are the Jews. No, they are us. They're the children of God. We are the children of God as Christ. And just as they were told that you have to be a shining light to others, we as Christians need to do that for our community, because that is the number one thing that I see from our community, is that it's not that they don't want to believe in a God, is that they effectively say, if that is what believers of God look like, I don't know if I want that either. And that's why it's so. Is that the prophet Isaiah uses light analogy a lot. There's one he says in Isaiah 60, which is like 51 chapters. I mean, he just does this. This is what he says. And much, much later, he says, arise and shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. And see, the darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the people. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. So the same prophet that told them a light is coming is the same one that actually tells them to arise and shine. So in other words, God did not just promise a redeemer. He also calls his people to shine even when they're waiting. And so I don't know what you're waiting on. I don't know what you're, unless you tell me, and I would love to know, whatever you're waiting on, or whatever your hope is that just like the people of Israel, God says, but you still need to shine. And he calls them to be a light in the darkness, because even if the darkness has or has not lifted, we still reflect the glory of God. And the word arise and shine, these are actual, so unfortunately, as we can kind of understand, we have this word called an exclamation mark, and so that's normally what we add for emphasis and exclamation. In the Hebrew, they would actually entail that into their command. So a lot of languages, actually, the way that they have their verb, they would conjugate it such that it was an imperative. It's not like, hey, let's arrive. Kind of like there's a difference when you arrive at 6 o'clock to your children. You say, okay, it's time to get up. And then when you say those same words about 30 minutes later, it is a different connotation, right? I said, get up, ... now. And so that's the imperative, a command. Those two words are those commands. I want you to arise and shine. It is not just, hey, if you think about it, when you get a chance, just to rise and shine. It's like, no, do these two things. It is it's very active. Because here's the thing. Has anyone ever, I've yet to see any of my children, or even me, accidentally arise and get on a treadmill. Okay? People do. Dad, I don't know how I came on here. I just started running. Like, wow, you're sleepwalking onto the treadmill, That it doesn't happen by accident, okay? And can I tell you that maybe it'll happen one day, but you have to be actually intentional. You do, okay? And when Isaiah says, your light has come and the glory of the Lord shines upon you, I think that is where our confidence should be rooted, because I believe this, is that we shine not because of our glory, but because of God's glory. And here's something that you probably know. You probably know this. A lot of people might know this, but don't connect it often because it just isn't. Is that, do you know that the moon has no light of its own? Okay, it does not. So like technically speaking, there is no such thing as moonlight. Okay, It is sunlight that gets reflected off the moon, okay? And what we are actually seeing is borrowed, reflected light from a greater source, which is the only source, I might add, because the moon has zero light, okay? It only gets it from the sun. But yet, what do we say? Like, oh, look at how bright the moon is today. We never say, wow, the sun is really reflecting great off the moon tonight, isn't it, honey? I can see it'd be a little less romantic, you know. But we don't say that, you know. We say, look at how beautiful the moonlight is. We give credit to the moon for something it's not even producing. And you know what? In the same way, you and I do not generate our own spiritual light either. We are not the source of hope, even though we can be. It is the hope that people see in us that is reflected from the glory of Jesus Christ to the world around us. Because as much as you can, like, and I try and give as much hope, but eventually I run out because I'm limited. Eventually I will come out simply because, not because I don't want to, but because it's because I'm limited. And that is why everything I do is trying to reflect Jesus' light, which is why when I run out, I say, go to the source, which is greater than me, that you can put your hope into and not feel like you're limited. That is why I think it's so important. But here's my question. Where does moonlight shine the brightest? It's on the side of the world that faces away from the sun. Because the sun will overshadow the moon. I mean, not that you, here's the thing, we see all the time, like, I've seen the moon out in daylight, you know, like, there's the sun, there's the moon, okay? But you know where I notice the moon a lot? When it's dark outside. That's when I know, look, there's the moon, right there, okay? I don't have to look at it, I don't have to be like, where is it, honey? Oh, there it is, okay? I know it because it's so bright. And that's what I think is that God's light shines in the places of darkness the most. And that's actually why I think he says for us to shine is because he wants us to shine and be seen his glory reflected upon us in the darkest of places. And interestingly enough, Isaiah goes even deeper. He says, thick darkness covers the people. Now, do you need me as a pastor to tell you, if you look online, that people are getting confused, that people are getting angrier, that people are getting more frustrated and more spiritually blind? I hope you don't, but in case you do, they are. Okay, plain you know. I mean, all you have to do is just pick up a Cosmopolitan magazine, and you can see how messed up our world is. Like, if you take advice from a Cosmopolitan magazine, good luck. Okay, good luck on you. But I believe that God wants us to shine, not really for our sake, but for other people's sake. That's why I constantly come back. I want salvation for others. I know that I have salvation. I do. Jesus is not only just for me, but for others. And that means, but here's the big thing, is that as much as I think that rich people can have super influence, famous people can have super influences, I don't know many rich or famous people, and I don't know if you do. If you do, please introduce me to them so I can know them. But what that does is, but here's the thing, is that as much as it is true that Elon Musk could probably do a lot more than I could, because he's a lot richer than I am, unless you know Elon Musk, okay, or you want a Tesla, he's not really influencing our lives that much, which means it doesn't matter the size. If you're not influencing it, you have no real control or power. And what that means is that our lives matter to those around us. That our lives oftentimes are the only ones that people outside of the community will see. Okay, Elon Musk is not doing the North Las Vegas tour, at least to my knowledge, okay? But I know that when I'm out shopping and I'm out and I greet people, that I can actually influence them. And that's what I also want to do to us, is that we can reflect, because our lives matter. The kindness we show matters. The love we show matters. And by the way, have you ever been, have you ever been to a restaurant, okay, and they're serving burgers, okay? I've had some really good burgers, but the range of burgers is kind of narrow, okay? You can have really, really bad burgers, but if you've ever had like a super gourmet burger, there is a limit to how good a burger can actually functionally be, okay? Unless we're going to like, Scott, have you ever had the $300 burger? Okay, I don't know if you remember a few weeks ago, I had the world's richest burger. It was $10,000. I cannot afford that. So if it's, have you had this hot, so maybe that is probably the most high-end burger I've ever seen in my life. I just don't have access to it, okay? And most of us won't have access to it. But here's the interesting part. No matter how good a burger is, have you ever seen that when you go to a restaurant with good people, it tastes better? Like when you just have great servers who are friendly and interactive and care about you, that the food can be pretty average, but you're like, man, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. And, you know, have you ever been to, hopefully, again, have you ever been to a hospital where the staff is really caring and you realize that they're going above and beyond their job because, you know, hopefully they don't want you to die because it just means more paperwork, but like they're going the step because they care about you as a person, you know? And you're like, wow, like this is actually better. So it amazes me if people can actually get help, like people can get healthier, food can taste better, and what is the difference? Is that the amount, is the delivery in which it's given. And that's why I think that why we matter and the way we are can actually make this community and what we do better. Because sometimes it's like, well, I have a pretty average burger, but you know what? You serve it with a smile and it becomes better. It becomes absolutely better. And you know what? I believe that a sermon that is spoken in genuine compassion and love can reach people closer to God as well. And I hope that, like I've seen a lot of pastors say a lot of words, and you know what? They're a lot of the same words from the same book, thank God, the same book. And yet, you know what? I actually believe that if you look enough, there is a difference between a really good speaking pastor and a bad speaking pastor. And it's love and interest and genuineness that they have. And that's why I try and always bring my A game, because I mean, it could be really easy if I just hand you the book and $30 and be like, here you go, read it, come back, tell me what you thought, okay? Because it brings me to my final point, and that is that our hope has a name. It does. It is not a nameless, ominous, mysterious hope. Our hope has a specific name, and in fact, many names. And Israel hoped for a Messiah before they could even see him, like long before. And I actually want to say good for them. No, like good for them. Because I know that today, a lot of times we focus on the Pharisees. If you've been in church long enough, there's these guys, and it's like there's a lot of fighting where I don't want to believe in you and whatnot. But can I actually just say, there were many Jews who waited and waited and waited and did put their faith in Jesus Christ. Okay? That on the day of Pentecost, when Peter and the other apostles actually started preaching, many of the people they were talking to were Jews, and they said, wow, that's the Messiah we've been waiting for. I know that sometimes we focus on the people who, didn't, but I do want to say, there were people who waited, and they're like, thank you, our Messiah has come. And I think that is great. But think about this, is that many of them never saw the hope or never actually saw Jesus that they put their hope in. They died not knowing, like not actually seeing it. And yet he still came. And the big thing is that, I can only imagine that as the years went by, their list of grievances for what the Messiah needed to fix was probably getting a lot longer. It's like, hey, Jesus, remember 500 years ago? Remember 400 years ago? Remember, you need to fix all of this. And when Isaiah describes who Jesus is, he gives us four names, and they are four titles. And a lot of us go through it, especially in the Christmas songs, but I sometimes think of how titles and names are using. Have you ever gone to, and we're in Vegas. If you ever go to a show, I've gone to plenty of shows, and every single one of them seems to be the #1 show in Vegas. Every single one of them. Okay? I don't know who's giving out the #1 show in Vegas, but they need to know what the #1 means, okay? Because in my life, it happens to one person, one thing, one entity, and yet every show I go to is the #1 in Vegas. It doesn't matter if it's a show or a restaurant or a car wash. Yes, I was at a car wash, the #1 car wash in Vegas. Like, dude, I just need you to get the dirt off my car. Like, if you do that, I don't even care if you're #4. Like, how do you rate that? That's what I want. Like, can you imagine someone like, yes, I'm the car wash rater. I'm going to wash my car, and then I'm going to rate you on how well. And it's like, sorry, that undercarriage spray didn't really do well. #5, sorry. Okay? But yeah, I think that when we go through life, we get so inundated from advertisements and ads that a lot of time we can be like, oh yeah, that's whatever. But can I tell you that when we talk about God, when we talk about Jesus, his names actually matter. They actually mean something. It is not the #1 Messiah in the world, okay? Even though he absolutely has that achievement, I do not see that on his list. Yes. Like, come to the church. We have, maybe I should. Come to Navigation Church. We have the #1 Messiah of any religion, Like, I'll put that on the maybe, okay? We'll have that. Maybe. We'll have that on the thought board, right? But I'll have Couture get on that. We'll need that. So, yeah, why should I come to Navigation Church? We have a better Savior. Isn't it the same one? No, we have the #1 Savior. But here is my point. Is that every name introduced in these is a dimension of hope. And that's what I want us to do. So we start off with Wonderful Counselor. We have a Wonderful Counselor. Now, here's when I hear Counselor. This is what I think of Counselor. Okay? You got the Camp Counselor. This is for Chris because he knows what the Camp Counselor is. Okay? Which is fine. If you've ever been to camp, anyone been to summer camp? Awesome. I hope it was a positive. I hope it was very positive. I went to summer camp for a week. It was very positive. And you have, especially if you have good camp counselors, they do the games, they do all fun. And then you have the other person, where we generally don't like that other counselor, even though we probably all need it. Many of us need it, but yeah, it's always the marriage counselor. But what I will say is these are not the kind of counselors that Isaiah is talking about, okay? Jesus is not a great counselor, nor is he, I do think, however, he's a great marriage counselor because he knows how people work. But when he says counselor, he's not even talking about a great marriage counselor. He's not. He's actually, in a way, talking about the counselors that kings have. So, they have the people that are around us that give them wise counsel, the strategists and advisors. And a lot of times, we actually still have that today. Like the president has a cabinet, the people who are supposed to be experts at what they do, and when you have a bad cabinet, you're giving really bad advice, right? But imagine having, have you ever followed someone's advice and you thought, why did I listen to them? Okay? If you're, and they did the best of intentions, I would do this, and you're like, I'm going to trust you, and then about 5 seconds in, you're like, I misplaced my trust. That is not, I am never taking a word of your advice ever again, okay? Then if they're a commander, then they just force you to take their advice, and then that's whatever, But I love, what is amazing? I see people taking relationship advice from people who are involuntarily single, okay? Now, if you're single and you're like, yeah, I can have a relationship whenever I want, and I really believe it, it's like, okay, show me, because I want one, and if you could just snap your fingers and have a relationship, okay, well, tell me your magic, But I see it all the time, that people are taking relationship advice from people who are single, and it's like, well, where's I'm not even saying you can't give good relationship advice, but let me tell you, you're going to take good relationship advice, someone that has a good marriage, and then maybe follow what they do, okay? That's a word of advice. But Jesus never gives bad counsel. He's a wonderful counselor. Have you ever had someone that gives you good advice and you want to go back to them and you're like, hey, they helped me, and they keep going back, But here's what's interesting, and this is why. The counselor is not in charge. It's the king. The counselor is the guy on the side. And so what's amazing is that imagine having Jesus, the guy who knows everything, he's like, hey, here's how you become an even better king. How your life can be. In fact, it's that's the idea. It's we always have, I know that a lot of it is Rasputin. He's the evil counselor that always whispers into the king's ear, and he's really the puppet and whatnot. Isn't it amazing how the counselors can have great influence over the actions of the king? And Jesus says, don't worry, I want to be a wonderful counselor. I'm going to give you the stuff that is going to actually be really good for you. That is actually really, really hopeful for me. The second one is mighty God. Now here's the big thing about might, and I know that we can kind of see it in today's, is that might always has a militaristic term. We have I want might. And they really, the Israelites, just like today, they really thought that Jesus is going to be a military might that is going to come in and wreck everyone. When I said the list of grievances was long, for about 2,000 years, the list of people who were kind of overtaking and fighting with the Israelites became very long. And that's why they're like, man, I want a guy who's going to give them a comeuppance, man. I'm going to give it, they're going to get theirs, and they're going to get theirs, and they're going to get theirs. You have that list, and whatnot. And I will say this. Overwhelming strength, mighty men can win wars. They can, okay? With a little good advice, they can do that. But you know what I've never seen in the military? I've never seen a single officer or enlisted person that is able to calm a storm with their voice. I've never seen that once. I've never seen it rain on an inspection. Someone says, hey, stop, and it stops. And yet I believe in a Savior that can do that. And that's why I think that when we talk about might, Jesus came to redefine what might was. And I sometimes wonder, if Jesus was in the military and he just stopped a storm with his voice, how would you even put that on a performance report? What was the measure and the impact of that, Jesus? Sorry, better luck next year, That strat is going down. That's right. But the third one is also this, an everlasting Father. I found a Mark Twain quote. I kind of use it often. I think it really does. Is that when I was a boy of 14, my father was so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have the old man around. But when I got to be 21, I was astonished at how much the old man had learned in 7 years. Okay? As a dad with now, an older son, I start to see that. And it is kind of chuckling. Because again, my dad changed, not me. We don't change. And I know that especially for some of the students in the room, having an everlasting father would be, you might think it would be horrible. Because if you see oftentimes a father as simply a disciplinarian, yeah, I'd probably not like that either. An everlasting disciplinarian in my life, yeah, no thank you, pass, okay? But here's something interesting. When as most of you know, I have artificial grass. I don't like to mow. Not that most people mow, it'd just be rock anyway. But when I was putting in the grass, I wanted to extend my sprinkler heads to be able to have flowers. And as I was uncovering it, I broke one of the sprinkler lines, okay? Now, for most of you who don't deal with sprinklers, the sprinkler lines are not like your faucet. The sprinkler lines go off of the main water line, which does not have an on-off switch, as we think, like a faucet's like, I'll just turn off the faucet. No. The main sprinkler line is the main water line, and that will flow until either I cut it off or the city cuts it off. And at the time, I had no clue where my water cutoff was. And so what happened is I broke and just water starts pouring, and my whole yard started to flood. It just started to flood. And you know what I did? Picked up my phone. Did I dial 911? No, probably should have. Help me! You know, I've seen 911 phone calls, okay? Telling your yard is flooded is not the worst that they've seen. But did I call a plumbing company? Nope. I called my dad. Like, Dad? And my mom picked up. It was funny because my mom picked up. It's like, oh, Scott, how are you doing? Put Dad on the line right now. And she's like, you coming right up? You know, it is amazing. And it was like, I love you, Mom. I will talk to you for a long time. But it was that tone of voice where it's like, I need Dad. And she's like, he is coming right up. Okay? And that is what I think of when I see God as a father, is that as you get older, you know, like I get it, that there is always a disciplinary, but you know, the way I see my father now is I don't get disciplined by my dad, but man, does he help me out in life. Man, does he have good opinions? Does he have a source of knowledge? And that's what I think, that when they say he's going to be an everlasting father, wouldn't it be awesome if you had a person who had all your answers and loved you and wanted you over? When he comes over, all I want my dad to do is just relax. Like, I just want him to relax. Like, he flies hours, just eat my food, watch my TV, enjoy everything. And you know what my dad does? He starts fixing my house. And I'm like, Dad, I don't need it. Well, I do need a fixer, but not you, okay? Like, I need, and what does my dad say? It's like, it's my job. Like, it's my job, as in, like, I want to do it. I want to help my children because they need it. And it's like, and I'm thinking that as well, when it's like, when I, hopefully, knock on wood, when I go to my children's houses that they will get, I see the same thing, where it's like, I see a problem, and I'm just like, I want to fix it. I want to fix it. And that's why I think that when he says it's an everlasting father, that if you see God as just this disciplinary that's just slamming us, that we're looking at him in a very wrong, bad light. And that when the Israelites said, I'm going to have an everlasting father, the way they saw it is like, man, I'm going to have a guy, I'm going to have a savior who loves me and is in my life and supports me, not because I'm poor or whatnot, but because he loves. And that is why I think it's so awesome to have that. And lastly, it talks about the Prince of Peace, right? Can I have the worship team come up? Jesus is the Prince of Peace. But before we talk about peace, my question to you is this. What kind of peace are you looking for? Okay, because we talk about mighty God, right? God is we want a mighty, and a lot of them it's like, yeah, once he takes out people, we'll have peace. But let me tell you, and I mean this seriously, if the war in Ukraine stopped tomorrow, would your life get better, worse, same? Okay? I mean, I'm sure that the Ukrainians' lives would absolutely get better. But my question is like, there's a lot of war happening right now in so many places and so many conflicts. And when they end, it doesn't necessarily, like, I'm happy because I don't like war. But if I'm honest, the peace that I need in my life has nothing to do with the wars that are being fought in the world. It has to do emotionally, it has to do relationally, that the peace I need in my life is not from a mighty general that comes in and beats everyone up and says, you're going to like Scott or else. As much as I would like that, okay, that's not where my peace comes from. And in fact, the biggest thing of peace in my life is just when my wife puts her arms on me and says, Scott, it'll be okay. That gives me peace. And Jesus wants to be the Prince of Peace. And so that's my thing, is my question to you is, what kind of peace do you want? Would your life be better if all the wars of the world just stopped tomorrow? Or is it the peace that you're looking for? Is it something deeper? And again, because I think that most of the battles, so to speak, figuratively, that we're fighting, have nothing to do with weapons and have nothing to do with bombs. They have everything to do with people and hurting and emotion. And that's what Jesus says, I am the Prince of Peace, that I can calm those storms in your life, because I see those storms rage way more than shooting and violence. And it's not that it doesn't happen, it absolutely does. But what peace are you wanting this season? Because I think one of the hardest parts that we had for the Israelite people is that Jesus was not the Messiah they wanted. They said they wanted a Messiah, and they needed a Messiah, but he was not the Messiah they wanted. And I don't want us to fall into that trap. I don't want us that our hope is in the Messiah that we have in our mind, that is made up, and that is a Messiah where someone agrees with us on everything. I don't even agree with myself on everything. Have you ever seen? How could I have a Messiah that does that? And yet, I don't think when the Israelites said, I'm going to have a general that's going to punish the people I want to punish, and he's going to benefit me because I want to be benefited, that Jesus came and he did this amazing thing. He actually did not destroy the Romans. He didn't come over and destroy the Romans. In fact, he did something that made them absolutely frustrated and angry and livid. And they said, not only am I not going to destroy the Romans, I'm going to invite them in. I'm going to actually say, you should come to me. I'm going to be your savior too. And that set the Jews off. And again, we're standing. Don't think that I don't talk to people who think like, I want Jesus to punish my enemies. And it's like, I want my enemies to believe in Jesus, and then I guarantee you they wouldn't be my enemies anymore. So I know I usually end with application questions, but due to the Advent candle and whatnot, I wanted to honor your time, and I don't want us to run over too long. So we're starting the Christmas season, and I know that the weather is good and the days are longer. There's a lot of difference because the season is changing, and even in Vegas we see a season change. But you know what's amazing about Christmas is that whether you're a Christian or even not, even non-Christians understand the season of love and charity and kindness. And I think that they don't realize it's in Jesus, even though we do. And so I'm going to end with just this one question, and that is, what do you hope for this Christmas season? Is it more stuff? Is it video game? Cheap video games on Steam for 90% off? Is it a TV? Is it tools? Which, by the way, like I always say, those are all fine. Okay, those are fine. I need things to get my children for Christmas. But I will say that this year particularly is special for me, because unlike every other year I've had in my entire life, my hope is that I can bring more people to Navigation Church. And that is unique this year. It's the first time I've been able to do it. And that is my hope and prayer for everyone here, is not so I can grow a big church. I do not care. It's so I can lead people to Christ. Because that is much more important than these walls and this candle and the praise team and even me. Is that because nothing in this building can save you. Only Jesus Christ can. And that's what I want from my community, is to show them the solution that they have been longing for all their life. And so, I hope that, I would say this, you can hope for more than one thing, by the way. Okay, my children hope for as many things as Mac is willing to buy them. Okay? So you can hope for more than one thing. So it's not an either or. And I'm thankful for Mac, because as we know, moms do all the Christmas shopping. Thank you, Mom. I think it's fine to hope for cheap stuff. I do. But I think that we have an opportunity to give someone something for 100% off. You like 50? I can give you something for 100. And we have something that is 100% off. And we don't have to wait till Black Friday, or the Black Friday deals, or the Black Friday month, to give it to a community who's desperate for it. And that's the love and hope of Jesus Christ.